The record on. There we go. Oh, good evening. This is Mel 603. Hope everybody's having a good summer. We're halfway through. This is class number 5 of 10. So things are speeding right along. As always, let's start with our weekly schedule. This week we're doing technology, social media, cyber issues. You're to examine a district's acceptable use policies for electronic devices. We're looking at sexual harassment, examining the school or district policies concerning sexual harassment of teachers and students. You're to read the Principal's Guide, chapters 12 and 13. Your discussion boards examine a school or district policy on cyberbullying. Citing policy, explain your response to a parent presenting evidence of cyberbullying at your school. And other discussion boards examine a school or district policy on harassment. Citing policy, explain how you as an administrator would respond to a complaint brought by a 10th grade female student claiming harassment by her male softball coach. So those were the things that you were to do. I've been getting good meeting discussion boards. The first thing, let me mute everybody. All right, now fix that problem. All right. As always, there has been some confusion, even with practicing administrators, about the cyberbullying law. I hear things like, well, they didn't do it while they were here at school, so I don't have to be involved in it. That's wrong. Oh, the cyberbullying policy has been reversed. It has been struck down. It has been rejected. The cyberbullying law is no longer. All of those are wrong. There was a modification to the cyberbullying law that said if students were involved in a back and forth on social media, that's not cyberbullying. All the rest of the law still exists. Too many times I'm hearing administrators not dealing with things. Well, I don't know if it happened while if they texted. It's immaterial where they text. What they text is what's important. Because it's likely to come to your school, and if it affects the educational environment, school administrators are to deal with it. So let's look quickly at. I can take that one down. Let's see. Let me take that one out. Take that one out. Okay. All right. So cyberbullying, relational bullying consists of indirect, covert attempts to affect the target's reputation or social standing. It may not include cyberbullying, which is the use of information and communication technologies such as email, cell phone, pager, text messages, instant messages, and defamatory personal polling website to intentionally harm others. In 2009, the General Assembly passed Bill 1261, which made cyberbullying a criminal offense punishable as a misdemeanor. Let me see if I have that one pulled up. I did a few minutes ago. Let me move it here. Let me see if I have it. Okay. Okay. Okay, local districts have to develop a policy prohibiting bullying or harassing behavior. bullying, cyberbullying, bullying, harassing behavior. Now, as I said, the only change to this is that if students are texting back and forth or both participating, that would not be, if they're both involved, it would not be. But other than that, the cyberbullying law is still in place. So please remember that. And so it is a criminal offense. Okay, let me look at 14,458. Let's see what that says. Let's see if I can get that one to pop up. Oh, here we go. Don't know who's been. All right. It is unlawful. Build fake profiles, a website, poses a minor internet chat room, electronic file online. Okay. Here is the law. The only change, as I said, if students are involved back and forth, then that would not be considered cyberbullying. Everything else is still on the record. This is still, everything is still here. And so for schools, the rule of thumb is if it has if it affects or has the likelihood to affect the educational environment, then schools have every duty and right to respond to cyberbullying, regardless where it occurred. That's the point of contention with cyberbullying right now. Schools believe that if they can't prove or don't want to try to prove that it happened on campus, then they don't have to deal with it. That's incorrect. It is your duty to deal with it, and there's the law. So let that guide what you find out in your response in your discussion board this week. All right. Back to Zoom session 5. Finishing up from last week, we looked at incident reporting, code of conduct. You've already seen the conference presentation that I did years ago on preventing violence in schools. DPI does have a website for PBIS. Let me see. And that's the link to it here. Whether your school or school district uses PBIS is up to them, but they do have to have some sort of behavior intervention program in place in schools. Let me say that again. It doesn't have to be PBIS. That's by far the most popular one. But every school district, public school district in North Carolina, must have a behavior intervention plan of some sort in place. All right. So there's that one. Let me see, back to Zoom session 5. As I said, I did a conference presentation, and the part of that I want to hit tonight is bullying and harassing behavior. I'm going to spend more time later in the semester, so I just want to run through this quickly. This has become way bigger deal than it ought to be in public schools. And you need to make sure that you are aware of what's going on and that you deal with these kinds of behaviors. Unfortunately, many of the young people who perpetrate some of the most heinous violent crimes, especially shooters, have been bullied or claim to have been bullied, and the school had done nothing to ameliorate that. And so You need to be aware of bullying, harassing behavior. And it can happen at any place on school property, any school-sponsored function, or on a school bus. Now, the point that I want to make about this tonight, again, here's all the ways that you can be bullied or harassed. But I want you to remember again, as long as it's verbal, you need to be involved and you need to take care of it and you need to investigate and do what you need to do. But as soon as there's any physical contact involved, you need to turn it over to the police, because it no longer is sexual harassment. Now it becomes sexual assault. Be careful about that. So during your investigation, you're working through your investigation and you find out there's inappropriate touching or other kind of physical contact, stop. Get the police involved, because that's a crime. That becomes a whole nother level of investigation that you are not qualified to do. This is another one of those things that's about your job. But here is the complete definition of bullying, harassing, in terms of the categories that you can be harassed for. No student or school employee shall be subject to bullying or harassing behavior by other school employees or students. No person shall engage in any act of reprisal or retaliation against the victim, witness, or person providing reliable information. That's the whistleblower law. You have to be careful about getting witness statements and keeping those confidential so there won't be retribution. Part of due process is getting witness statements. You need to make sure that you hold those statements confidentially in terms of the author of those statements. School employees shall report. Students should report. Employees shall report. Employees that don't will be terminated. There's no intermediate steps on this one. School employee who has witnessed or reliable information that students are being bullied or harassed, if they don't report that, they're subject to dismissal. That violates the morals clause in your contract. That's the thing to remember. Administrators that don't report or who try to suppress those things, we saw one last week where an AP not only didn't respond to reports of bullying and harassment, but tried to cover it up and intimidate the student who came forward, ended up with criminal charges. So that doesn't say should for employees, it says shall. Every district every school must have a anti-bullying policy. Every district. Let me get this chat question here. Oh yes, you are required. So a question comes in: if a child tells you bullying in the household, yes, you are required to report that as well to Child Protective Services. That is correct. Again, a report has been made to you. You are in what under the law is called a responsible person. And responsible persons have the duty and shall report. That's where that shall comes from. Comes from the responsible person statute. When you become a public school employee, teacher, administrator, you become what's known as a responsible person. And that means it's your duty and responsibility to report things that come to you.
Dr. Lamb, can I piggyback that?
Yes, sir.
Folks, one of the things that you'll be faced with, and I'm going to go back to what we talked about last week, when you have an issue that comes before you and it's a late Friday afternoon, you do not want to put this off till next week. You know, as best as you can, you need to deal with it immediately. You don't want something of this statute to carry through the weekend. Dr. Lamb, do you agree with that?
424.
Yep.
you need to be on it within 4 hours, and you need to have it resolved in 24. And either the resolution is you're going to handle it within the school, or you're going to move it to the police. 424. The state says you must report any act of crime and violence to them within 24 hours. And all others within 48 hours. This is not a we'll get to it on Monday kind of thing. No. Oh, I've got plans for the weekend. I can't do that. Nope. Sorry.
The other thing I'll bring up is we never thought about this last weekend, but you might ask the question like I did: why did an AP pursue the student to protect the teacher? And the only thing that came to my mind is evidently this teacher and this AP must have had some type of relationship of some kind, and they felt the need to protect that teacher. Folks, you've got to be careful when you get involved as a school administrator. You're held to a higher standard, and you've got to be very cautious of your relationships with your staff and especially your community.
Yeah, I'm having to stand up. I'm having a little leg cramp here, but you are a responsible person. You are, for lack of a better word, the last best hope for some of these young people and the situations that they're in. And you need to make sure that you understand that. You need to make sure that you fulfill your responsibilities. Okay, let me see. Hopefully my cramps will go away here. All right, we're back at it. All right. All right, so we've covered all the things on this screen. Let me go to the next one. Again, I have a sexual harassment presentation. We're going to do that later. The policies are in the handbook. We've already looked at those, but let me look at that again right quick. I think I have that one open. But again, I just want to refer you back. All the things that we're covering here are in this disciplinary data reporting procedures manual. Make sure that if you have questions, this is your guide to all things reporting and what you're supposed to be involved with in North Carolina. Okay, let me go to concluded. There's that cyberbullying statute. Again, we've already seen that. Again, it's in the handbook. All right. The main thing that I wanted to cover with you tonight is this PowerPoint. You know the laws now. You know what you're supposed to do. You know where to find all the definitions. What I want to talk to you about is violence in schools. I guess kind of the point being, it's not going to go away. We have too many folks who think if we will just ignore it, if we will underreport it or not report it, it's going to go away. It's not going to go away. And if you ignore it or underreport it so that the corrective action is not taken, it will only get worse. Extensive loss protocols are always preceded by extensive loss. People start making rules and policies because things happen. That's why all of these rules and policies and laws are in place. It's because these things have happened and are continuing to happen. We must be more proactive as educators. Some background in the 50s and 60s, we had a strong movement toward consolidation in school districts with the goal of saving money. And so we have large schools now. We don't have the little one-room schoolhouse with 25 kids in it. We have schools in some districts. If you've got less than 800, you're a small school. I was a high school principal. I had 3,000. That's real. And so you have to put a lot of control and management measures in place because we have preoccupation with grades, competition, and individual success. But everybody that comes to school is not successful. And we've created an atmosphere where a lot of kids feel alienated, isolated, and rejected. That's real. You can say, we're no child left behind. We're here for every child. We're doing all. It doesn't work that way. Modern schooling kind of fits one format. We don't individualize. We have to run our organizations for the group, not for individuals, unfortunately. And so we get a lot of individuals, whether it's real or perceived, it's real to them, who feel alienated from the group. A lot of kids don't like the competition. Some kids get bullied because they're different. These are the kids that tend to act out with violent behaviors. And that's not going to change in modern schooling. And so you've got to have processes in place, supervision schedule, duty roster, have people where they need to be. I'm not telling you you'll be able to stop them all, but you won't lose your house when you get sued for inadequate supervision. You need to have people, Johnny, on the spot. But you can also deal with some of the smaller things that become bigger things. That's I've talked to you before about antecedent behaviors. If you see the small stuff, if you ignore it, you don't have time for it, it'll become the big stuff. That's the way it works. These changes, coupled with growing societal problems such as poverty, disorganization, overcrowding in communities, have contributed to the emergence and recent increase in school violence. That was 12 years ago. Think about all the things that have happened in the last 12 years, all the violent acts that have happened in schools. The numbers keep on growing. I don't want you to be the administrators whose response to the growing threat of violence and growing violence is to either not report or underreport, thinking it'll go away and get better. That's what a lot of folks are doing until it becomes untenable in their buildings. And here's violence strictly. A narrow definition of violence provided by L.Y. described as aggressive behavior where the actor or perpetrator uses his own body or an object, including weapons, to inflict serious injury or discomfort on another individual. You know that. And here's some more definitions. World Health Organization. Here are the 9 acts of violence. Okay, and then I've got some survey data here from a while back. And it speaks about bullying again, is a big part of it. And I've got well over 100 slides here. I don't want to go through all of them. I just wanted to get the kind of the conversation rolling. So now I want to talk to you more specifically about persistently dangerous schools. No Child Left Behind statute, as I've told you before, says you don't have to go to dangerous schools or low-performing schools. Persistently dangerous schools, there is a ratio of incidents, 1 for every 200 kids, 5 for every 1,000 kids. Now, don't be the idiot that I had one time and said, when I said, well, it's 5 for everything, he said, we don't have 1,000 kids, so you must be exempt. No, it's 1 for every 200 or 5 for every 1,000 students that you have. If you exceed that threshold, bad things are going to happen to you. Now, the response is not to not report it or threaten people if they report it or underreport it. That's not the correct response. That will cost you your job. You say, well, that's a risk I'm willing to take, because if I report myself, I know I'll lose my job. You'll have a year and a corrective behavior plan. You'll have a year and some help to try to get yourself to get your numbers down. But, after 2 years and you can't get your numbers down, then corrective steps will be taken. you'll move from the watch list to the persistently dangerous list. That's not a good thing. But the state will try, in your district will try to help, will help you and try to get your numbers down. And that what they'll teach you is better supervision and take care of the little things, and it'll stop some of the big things. That's the two things that they'll teach you. They'll go over that inventories assessment to make your school more safe, the one that you've already seen. They'll do things like that to try to help you. Your district may give you some additional security staffing and support. But the wrong thing to do is underreport or not report. I can't say that enough times. Underreporting is when you have an assault with a weapon and you put it in as aggressive behavior. Well, I told you, I put it in, but you underreported it. You didn't go by the statute of that you were supposed to, the definitions, and enter it correctly. That's the common thing that people do. You know how we know in the central office when you're doing that, you have a kid who gets an aggressive behavior charge and he gets a 10-day suspension. We're pretty sure that that was either assault with a weapon or something in that vein. And that's when somebody like me comes out and said, why are you giving a kid with aggressive behavior is usually less than an in-school suspension. Why is a kid with aggressive behavior getting 10 days? Well, he assaulted somebody with a stick or a rock or a knife or whatever. Well, then that's assault with injury or assault with a weapon. Well, we don't want to count that. That'll count against us. Well, maybe in your next job, they'll let you do things like that. We as school districts, whether it's North Carolina, South Carolina, charter schools, privates, public, doesn't matter. We can't stand the public relations nightmare of finding out that violent acts are happening in schools. Parents just won't put up with that, and they're not being dealt with and not being reported or being underreported. Social media will kill you. It will be the end. A principal in CMS got reassigned last week over comments she made about guns and weapons being for them, not that it was a heritage kind of thing and kids used to do it and all those kinds of things. But social media got a hold of her comments. Somebody videoed her. And social media got a hold of that, and she ended up getting reassigned last week. I don't know what a reassignment is, but what I'm telling you is you can't escape social media. It will track you down. So that somebody gets assaulted at your building with a weapon and you put it in as aggressive behavior, not only is the central office going to find out, every kid's going to go home and tell it, and probably 2 or 3 of them have videos of it. And they're going to hang you with them. So that's what you have to be most concerned with. All right, so there's that one. Let's see what else I've got. I'll get to that stuff in just a minute. We've already done the cyberbullying statute. I think I've beat this to death. And we got 7:30. That's all the time I wanted to spend on this. I wanted to spend some time. I wanted to shift gears and spend a little time talking about evidence artifacts, task stream, and those things tonight. We're halfway through. You need to be wrapping up the OMA no later than this week so that you can get to the skip. I had a good question earlier about the competencies that you wrote for the OMA in task 4. There is no place to put competencies in this summer. You do not have to do that. Now, you do have to put artifact proofs in your competency folio, all 21 this summer. You do have to do that. But where you normally write in task 4, where you normally write your competencies, you write them, but you do not have to put them in task stream this summer. Let's look at that. As you can see, for Mels 603 for add-on license, you're going to do the OMA and you're going to do the skip. There is no competency analysis during this semester. Just make sure you do your School of Ed dispositions, get your OMA and your skip in, and we're going to do CAP task 1, and you're going to be good for the summer. So When somebody says, oh, we don't have to do competencies summer, you don't have to write you don't have to put the competencies that you write in the OMA and SKIP into competency analysis. You do have to put artifact proofs in your competency folio this summer. Let's go to that and make sure that we're all on the same page. As you can see, you've got 3 semesters in this program. You've got 21, and they go from communication down to visionary. As I've told you before, what you put in here are things that are produced from the work that you do. This is not where you come in and put the narrative that you wrote in task 4. I don't want to see a narrative here. I want to see a thing. I want to see an agenda. I want to see minutes. I want to see a screenshot of an email. I want to see things. I want to see artifacts here. Evidence is a written narrative. Artifact is a thing that's produced by doing that evidence. Now, again, you do not have to do digital learning competencies. This is for your understanding of them. They are integrated into the first 21. So, for example, one of these 3 must satisfy the following digital learning competencies. See, I've got them in here. I didn't want you to have to do an additional 18 of them plus the 63 you're already doing. So the digital are integrated into these. So you got to do 3. They got to come from either the app cell SIOP or open-ended from your clinical activities at your school that you get your 80 hours. But one of them must satisfy this digital competency that's here. So communication down through visionary this summer. You got to do all 21. Digital's already there. Internship log, you will upload your 80 hours at the end of the summer and request comments from your clinical coach. Now, I don't want to get into, well, I did 120 in the spring, so I only have to do 40 this semester. No, you have to do 80 every semester. I had that question again today. No, you got to do 80 every semester. That's the state law. The state wants you to be a full-time intern during the entire time that you are in this program, whether that's 3 semesters for add-on or 5 semesters for regular. Every semester that you participate in the program, you are to be a full-time intern. They define being a full-time intern as a minimum of 80 hours. If you count the number of days in a regular semester, and that would be 80, so they want you to have an hour a day, and then summer they want you to double up, of course. They figure you're out of school. But they want 80 every semester. That's the definition of a full-time intern. Anything less than that, you're not considered full-time. So make sure that you get your hours in this summer. I am going to go back to the SKIP. We've already talked about task 1, prompt 1. I'm going to remind you again that in prompt 1, it's about gaps in communication. I don't want to see anything other than gaps in communication. I don't want to see a needs assessment you did in the app cell or AppTel. This is a different needs assessment. This is just for gaps. I got one again this week, looking for gaps in learning. No. Gaps in communication. Gaps. Then I had one that was gaps in parent involvement. No, it's gaps in communication with parents. Parent involvement is where we're headed, but we got to start with communication, because many parents don't participate or aren't involved because we haven't communicated with them effectively. That's down the road, their involvement. Remember, in our short term is to find ways to communicate with them. Long term is to get them involved to come to school for activities. But the needs assessment is to find out how to better communicate with them. Then we'll work on the involvement piece. See, too many folks will just jump right to the involvement piece and design all these wonderful activities for parents, and nobody ever shows up. Well, that's because you had a lack of communication. First things first. Find those gaps in communication with your short-term goals, long-term activities, family math night, family reading night, those kinds of things, where you get parents involved to come to your building where you help them help their child. All right, I should see a heading with narrative for each of these bullets here. All right. Candidate will lead the team and conduct organizational analysis, teacher working condition survey of school leadership, not teacher leadership, school leadership. And you're going to make recommendations for improvement. And then in task 2, you'll figure out the resources it's going to take for those recommendations, those 3 sets of recommendations you've got. 1 is short-term communication, 2 is activities, 3 is improving school leadership. So you've got 3 sets of recommendations so far. What's it going to take, people-wise and money-wise? I want to see dollars. I want to see names of people. Staff never did anything. That never gets done. I want to see names, and I want to see the people responsible to do these things, and I want to see how much money it's going to take. And I need to know where that money is going to come from. Okay. Your marketing plan should have all of these things as a narrative, and then you will summarize that in a graphic organizer. Use the same one you use in the app sell and the app tell. Specific activity, persons responsible, resources, formative assessment, summative assessment, your goal, indicator of success. Please remember, goal is where you want to be eventually. Indicator of success is, what would be, our goal is to have 100% of our parents participate in our activities. But our goal this year is to move from 45 to 50%. That's the difference between a goal and an indicator of success. It's kind of intermediate goals. Okay. Now, formative assessment is of the adults. Are they doing the things that they said they would do to pull these things off? It's a fidelity check. Formative assessment's always a fidelity check to see if people are doing what they said they were going to do. So that marketing plan looks suspiciously like your action plan and your growth plan. And then in 4, you will write your competencies. Please remember, you'll write 12 in the skip and 12 in the OMA. You'll do the other 9 now in the skip. You did 12 in the OMA. You had 8 required. You picked 4. Do the other 9 in the skip. Don't replicate any. Do 9 more of those. And if you do that, you should be fine. Now, let me get to the cap. Once you finish the skip, you're going to do the cap. You're doing analysis of these 5 areas. What we're looking for is the lowest 1 or 2 items from each of those areas from either your advanced ed survey or your teacher working condition survey, according to which state you're in. But don't just tell us in general what the scores. Find the lowest 1 or 2 items, and that's what you're going to focus on. Is the lowest 1 or 2 items. Now you're going to maintain these all the way through. You're going to add some more stuff to this, but you need to find at least 1 low item for each of those 5 areas, or 2 if you got 2 that are really low, and then. The needs assessment is basically you're going to resurvey those low items, like I don't have enough, facilities, I don't have access to technology. You're going to resurvey that exact same question. Then you're going to do some qualitative work later on where you're going to ask people, does this set of is this still a problem? Does this set of recommendations that we made address those? And what do you think we could do to fix this? So, after you have identified your lowest items, then you're going to do a needs assessment, which is basically just SurveyMonkey or Google Docking them back out, the same questions back out to the faculty, making sure it's still a problem. From there, you're going to make a set of recommendations to address these low items. I want to see one item for each of these 5. I looked at a CAP yesterday for comments, and they had only made recommendations in 2 of the 5 areas. No, I need to see at least one recommendation for each of those 5 areas. And then later on, you're going to do more of those things. But that's the biggest thing, is identify your lowest item or 2 in each of those 5 areas, and then address those with a recommendation. Once you have done a needs assessment to make sure that that is really a problem. Now, the reason why you resurvey these is these surveys, Advanced Ed and Teacher Working Conditions Survey, have over 100 items on them in 12 categories. We're now focusing on 5. Is this really a problem? Get people to look at it more closely, just these things. Okay? Questions you have for me about the skip or the CAP? All right. Dr. Pickard, do you have anything else tonight?
Just remind folks that we do have class on Saturday night at 7 o'clock. I've already sent you the link to all those classes for all the weeks we're going to be in school. It's optional. That's just for you and me to talk individually about any specific issue that you might be facing. So I think that's pretty much it, Dr. Lamb.
All right, Dr. Stedman, are you with us? I don't know if he's with us or not. All right. I got through early tonight, so I'll let you out here a little early tonight. If you have issues or questions or problems, don't hesitate to call me. Can we go back to TaskStream and review a little slower? What do we need to review in TaskStream?
I'll just unmute. I was just making sure that with the competencies that we sent you for task 4, we have to put those into TaskStream.
No.
Okay, just the artifacts.
Just the artifacts this semester. The only thing that goes into TaskStream this semester are your artifacts for the 21 competencies in your folio. As you can see, there is no place for competency narratives. There is no competency analysis this semester. We're giving you a break because you have so many tasks in such a short period of time. As you can see, there is no competency analysis in 603. The only thing that goes into TaskStream, again, is your artifacts in your competency folio.
But didn't we have to write those for task 4 anyway?
Yeah, you have to write them, but you don't have to put them in TaskStream.
Oh.
You still have to write them, but you don't have to put them in TaskStream. Do we write a narrative of the competencies for task 4 to include when turning in OMA and the assignment? You have to do task 4. Yes, you have to do task 4, but you don't have to copy and paste those into anywhere in TaskStream this summer. You still have to do them for task 4. You just don't have to put them in TaskStream. The only thing that goes in TaskStream this summer separately is just your artifacts. They will go into TaskStream as part of OMA of the final evidence narrative for the OMA, but they don't go in separately into a competency analysis this summer.
So when we turn in our final OMA to you, it does include the competencies.
It will have task 4, but it will have task 4. That's part of the final narrative, but it doesn't go separately. Last semester, we took and copied and pasted separately into a competency analysis. We don't do that this semester. We took AppSell Task 5 and AppTel Task 4 and copied and pasted those into a competency analysis last semester. We don't have to do that this semester, but you still have to write them in the task. All right. Will you be giving us the go-ahead on submitting to TaskStream for the OMA? Again, you have to do your Turnitin check before you go to TaskStream. All right. So if you go to for either section, when you go to here, when you go to assignment Dropbox, guess what I have for you? Your Turnitin check. You can put them, got to go through here. They're also in your clinical coaches shell. Whichever is most convenient for you is fine. But I'll be glad to check to run the Turnitin check, and then I will respond back to you to submit for evaluation, or if there's a problem with your references on the Turnitin check. Your clinical coach will do the same thing. Don't go to TaskStream until you've done your Turnitin check. You can do it either in your clinical coach's shell, or I've got a place right here in our class shell. Either one is fine, and you'll get feedback from us immediately. I haven't graded today, but I think I graded until 10 last night, so I'll catch up here as soon as class is over. But I grade every day. There wasn't much in there this morning, but I see some things that come in during the day. But yes, make sure that you have Turnitin checked your OMA or your skip before you go to TaskStream. We'll tell you when to go. You'll know. Other questions? All right. I like questions. That shows me you're paying attention. Always like questions. Never get upset about having questions. All right. I think that'll do us for tonight. We got out 10 minutes early. Good for us. I'll see you all next week. Everybody have a good week. Thank everybody for joining us tonight.